The moment Amy Fleming thinks she finally knows what she wants may be the exact moment her entire life begins to change. Because in the Heartland Season 20 finale, Amy is no longer simply choosing between love and loneliness. She is choosing between the life she has always known and the future she is finally brave enough to imagine. And whatever she decides, someone will have to live with the consequences. For most of Season 20, Amy has been standing at an emotional crossroads. She has spent years learning how to live with loss, memories, responsibility, and the life she built after Ty. But now, something has changed. For the first time, the future is no longer just an idea. It is standing directly in front of her, asking her to make a choice. And that choice could completely change the direction of her life. The biggest part of this conflict is Nathan Price. What began as a quiet connection has slowly become something much deeper. Nathan does not try to force Amy to forget her past. He does not ask her to erase Ty from her heart. Instead, he offers her something different. He offers stability, patience, and the possibility of a future that does not depend on the pain she has already survived. And that is exactly why Amy finds the decision so difficult. Because moving forward with Nathan would not simply mean starting a new relationship. It would mean accepting that her life has entered a new chapter. It would mean allowing herself to be happy again without feeling guilty about the person she lost. And for Amy, that may be harder than facing any external problem at the ranch. Ty is still part of her story. His memory lives in the places they shared, in the choices she makes, and in the person she became because of their love. Amy knows that moving forward does not erase any of that, but knowing something and accepting it are two very different things. As the finale gets closer, that difference becomes impossible to ignore. Amy begins asking herself questions she has avoided for a long time. Can she love someone new without betraying the love she once had? Can she build a future without feeling like she is abandoning her past? And most importantly, is she ready to stop living between two versions of her life? These questions slowly become the emotional heart of the finale. What makes the story more powerful is that Nathan never becomes the villain in this situation. He is patient with Amy, he understands that her past is important, and he does not try to compete with it. But his patience also creates pressure in a different way. Amy realizes that she cannot remain uncertain forever. There comes a point when waiting becomes its own kind of decision, and Amy can feel that moment approaching. The ranch around her remains familiar, but Amy's perspective is changing. The same family, the same responsibilities, and the same memories now carry a different meaning. She begins to understand that life cannot remain frozen simply because part of her heart still belongs to yesterday. Yet the closer she gets to making a choice, the more frightening that choice becomes. Because there is no perfect answer. If Amy chooses to remain completely tied to the past, she may lose the chance to experience something new. But if she chooses the future, she must accept that some things can never return exactly as they were. That is the painful truth waiting for her in the finale. Amy is not choosing whether Ty mattered. He always will. She is choosing whether his memory will keep her standing still or give her the strength to keep moving. And as that realization begins to settle in, the emotional pressure around Amy reaches a new level. She has spent so much of her life believing that moving forward means leaving something behind. But perhaps the finale will force her to understand something very different. Maybe moving forward does not mean forgetting. Maybe it means carrying the past with you while finally allowing yourself to live again. And that is where Amy's heartbreaking decision begins to take shape. Because when the moment finally comes, it will not be about choosing the person she loves more. It will be about choosing the life she is ready to live. And Amy may soon discover that the hardest goodbye is not always to another person. Sometimes it is goodbye to the version of yourself that has been afraid to move forward. But just when Amy begins to believe that she understands what her heart wants, another question begins to haunt her. What happens to the life she has built at Heartland if she chooses a completely different future? For Amy, Heartland has never been just a place. It is where she grew up, where she learned about horses, where she experienced love, loss, family, and healing. Every corner carries a memory. Every decision she makes is connected to the people who helped shape her. So the idea of moving forward is much bigger than simply accepting Nathan's presence in her life. It means changing the balance of everything she knows. And that is why the finale becomes more emotional as Amy gets closer to her decision. There is a quiet tension surrounding her. She knows that something has to change, but she does not know how much she is willing to sacrifice to make that change happen. For so long, Amy has been the person everyone else could depend on. She helped people through their pain. She gave others hope when they had almost none left. But now, she has to face her own uncertainty. And this time, nobody can make the decision for her. Nathan's role becomes even more important because he represents something Amy has almost forgotten how to imagine. A future that is not built around loss. He is not asking her to forget Ty. He is not asking her to become someone else. He simply wants to know if Amy is willing to let him become part of the life she has yet to build. That sounds simple, but for Amy, it is anything but simple. Because every time she thinks about the future, the past seems to find a way back into her heart. She remembers Ty. She remembers the dreams they had. She remembers the difficult moments they survived together, and the life they believed they would have. Those memories do not disappear just because time passes. In some ways, they become even stronger when Amy realizes that she may finally be ready to move forward. And that creates a painful feeling of guilt. Amy may wonder if being happy again means she is leaving Ty behind. But the truth she slowly begins to understand is that memories do not disappear when life changes. Love does not become meaningless simply because a new chapter begins. Still, understanding that does not make the decision easier. As the finale moves closer, Amy becomes increasingly aware that her choice could affect more than just her relationship with Nathan. It could change her future, her family, and even her connection to the place she has always called home. There are hints of a larger change waiting for her, a new responsibility, a new direction, possibly even a new place. And the uncertainty surrounding that future makes everything more intense. Amy has spent years finding comfort in what she knows. Heartland is familiar, her family is familiar, her work is familiar. Even her memories of Ty, as painful as they can be, are familiar, but the future is different. The future has no guarantees, and Nathan represents that uncertainty. He represents the possibility of waking up one day and realizing that Amy's life has completely changed. For someone who has already experienced such a devastating loss, taking that kind of emotional risk is terrifying. What if she allows herself to love again and loses again? What if she makes the wrong choice? What if the life she thinks she wants is not the life she truly needs? These questions keep Amy trapped between two worlds. And the closer she gets to the finale, the more impossible it becomes to stay there. Because eventually, hesitation becomes its own kind of pain. Amy begins to realize that she cannot keep asking the same questions forever. At some point, she has to trust herself. That may be the biggest challenge of all. For years, Amy has looked outside herself for answers. She has listened to the people she loves. She has considered their feelings. She has tried to protect everyone around her. But now, she has to listen to her own heart. And what she discovers may surprise her. The answer is not that the past no longer matters. The answer is that it matters so much that she can finally carry it without allowing it to control her future. That realization changes the meaning of everything. Amy does not have to choose between honoring Ty and loving someone new. She does not have to erase one life to begin another. She simply has to accept that her story is still continuing. And that is where the emotional suspense of the finale becomes almost impossible to ignore. Because Amy is getting closer to a decision that cannot be taken back. Nathan is waiting, her family is watching, her future is calling. And somewhere inside her heart, Amy already knows what she wants. The problem is that knowing the answer and having the courage to say it out loud are two completely different things. And when Amy finally reaches that moment, the decision may not only change her relationship with Nathan, it could change everything she thought her life was supposed to be. The hardest part of Amy's journey may come when there is no longer anywhere left to hide from the truth. For most of her life, she has learned how to survive change by holding on to the people and memories that made her who she is. But now, the finale forces her to face something she has been slowly avoiding. Her life cannot stay exactly the way it was, and that realization changes everything. Amy begins to understand that moving forward does not mean choosing Nathan over Ty. It does not mean replacing one love with another, and it certainly does not mean forgetting the person who shaped so much of her life. Instead, it means accepting that her heart can carry the past while still making room for the future. That may sound like a simple realization, but for Amy, it comes with an enormous emotional cost. Because once she accepts that life must continue, she also has to accept that the future will look different from the life she once imagined. The dreams she had with Ty cannot simply be recreated. The family she built with him cannot return to exactly the way it was. And the person Amy was years ago is no longer the person standing at this crossroads. She has changed. She has survived loss. She has raised a family. She has carried responsibilities that once seemed impossible. And now she has to decide what kind of life she wants to build with everything she has learned. Nathan becomes part of that answer, but he is not the entire answer. His importance comes from what he represents. He represents a future where Amy allows herself to be loved without constantly looking over her shoulder. A future where happiness is not something she feels she has to apologize for. But there is still one final fear. What if choosing happiness means losing part of herself? That question could be what makes the finale so emotional. Amy has spent years connecting her identity to the life she shared with Ty. Their relationship became part of her story, part of her healing, and part of the person she became. Letting go of the old version of that life can feel almost like letting go of a piece of herself. But perhaps the finale is telling us something deeper. Maybe Amy does not need to let go of Ty. Maybe she only needs to let go of the belief that she has to remain stuck in the past to prove that she still loves him. And once that truth becomes clear, the choice in front of her starts to look different. It is no longer about past versus future. It is about fear versus courage. Amy can stay where she feels safe, surrounded by memories that she understands, or she can step into a future that scares her because it is unknown. And for the first time, she may choose the unknown, not because the past has stopped hurting, not because the memories have disappeared, but because she finally understands that healing does not mean waiting for the pain to disappear completely. Healing means learning how to live with it without allowing it to control your life. That is the emotional turning point the finale has been building toward. And when Amy finally makes her decision, it could affect everyone around her. Her family may have to adjust. The ranch may face a new chapter. Her relationship with Nathan may become more serious than ever. And Amy herself may finally become the person she has been slowly growing into throughout the entire season. But there is something heartbreaking about that moment, because every new beginning comes with an ending. Amy will gain something by choosing her future, but she will also have to say goodbye to the version of her life that she once believed would last forever. And that goodbye may be one of the most emotional moments of the entire season. There may be no huge confrontation, no villain, no dramatic battle, just Amy standing with the weight of everything she has experienced, finally realizing that life will not wait until she feels completely ready. Sometimes, you simply have to take the next step. And that is exactly what Amy does. She chooses not because someone forces her. She chooses because she finally trusts herself. She chooses because she understands that loving someone from her past does not prevent her from loving someone in her future. She chooses because she knows that Ty's memory will always remain part of her story, no matter where life takes her next. And most importantly, she chooses because she is ready to live again. But the finale may leave one final question hanging in the air. Will this decision truly bring Amy peace? Or is this only the beginning of another emotional chapter? Because whatever happens next, one thing is certain. Amy Fleming will never look at her life in the same way again. Her decision changes the direction of her future, changes the meaning of her past, and possibly changes the future of Heartland itself. And that is why this finale is about much more than romance. It is about growing beyond the person you once were. It is about accepting that some loves are meant to remain part of your heart without controlling the rest of your life. And it is about finding the courage to choose happiness even when happiness feels frightening. Amy's heartbreaking decision may hurt. It may divide opinions. It may leave some viewers wishing she had chosen differently. But perhaps that is exactly what makes it powerful. Because the best choices are not always the easiest ones. Sometimes, they are the choices that force us to say goodbye to what we know so we can finally discover who we are meant to become. And as Heartland Season 20 reaches its final moments, Amy's story leaves us with one powerful truth. You can honor the past without living inside it. You can remember the love you lost and still open your heart again. And sometimes, the decision that breaks your heart is the same decision that finally sets you free. And now, as Heartland Season 20 reaches its emotional ending, one thing becomes clear. Amy's journey was never simply about choosing between two people. It was about choosing whether she was ready to let herself live again. For years, Amy carried the memory of Ty with her. His love shaped her. His loss changed her. And even when life continued around her, a part of her heart remained connected to everything they had shared. That connection was never something she needed to erase. But the finale shows us that remembering someone does not mean you have to stop living. Amy's biggest battle was inside herself. She had to face the guilt that came with moving forward. She had to ask whether finding happiness again meant betraying the life she once had. And most importantly, she had to decide whether she was willing to accept a future she could not completely predict. That is where Nathan becomes so important. Nathan does not represent a replacement for Ty. He represents a different chapter, a quieter chapter, a future built on patience, trust, and the possibility of starting again. And for Amy, accepting that possibility requires enormous courage. Because starting over is never easy when you have already experienced a devastating loss. There is always fear. Fear of being hurt again. Fear of making the wrong choice. Fear that happiness will somehow come with a price. But Amy finally begins to understand that there is no perfect moment when everything feels safe. Sometimes, moving forward means taking a step even when you are still afraid. And that is what makes her final decision so powerful. She is not choosing the future because the past no longer matters. She is choosing the future because the past has already given her everything it was meant to give her. The memories will remain. The love will remain. Ty will remain an important part of who she is. But Amy does not have to spend the rest of her life standing still to prove that. And this realization could change more than just her personal life. Amy's decision has the potential to affect the entire Heartland family. The ranch has always been a place where people return to when they need healing, but even Heartland cannot remain frozen in time. People grow, families change, new responsibilities appear, and sometimes the people we love most have to make choices that take them in unexpected directions. That is the emotional truth at the heart of this finale. Change is painful because it forces us to leave something familiar behind. But change can also be the beginning of something beautiful. Amy has spent so much of her life helping others find their way. Now, she finally has to find her own way. And perhaps that is the real ending to her story. Not that she has forgotten where she came from, not that she has stopped caring about the people she lost, but that she has finally learned how to carry those memories without allowing them to decide her future. The decision may break her heart. It may even break the hearts of viewers who have followed Amy's journey for years. But sometimes a heartbreaking decision can still be the right decision. Because life does not always give us the ending we imagined. It gives us the ending we need. And as Amy stands at the beginning of this new chapter, she finally understands something that she could not understand before. Moving forward is not the same as moving on. Moving forward means taking everything you have learned, everything you have loved, and everything you have lost, and carrying it with you into the future. That is what makes Amy's choice so emotional. She is not leaving her past behind. She is finally making peace with it. And if Heartland Season 20 has been building toward anything, it is this moment of acceptance. Amy has changed. Her life has changed. And Heartland itself is changing with her. So now the question is no longer whether Amy can return to the life she once had. She cannot. The real question is whether she is ready to embrace the life waiting for her. And after everything she has been through, perhaps she finally is. Whatever happens next, Amy's story reminds us that healing does not mean forgetting. Love does not disappear simply because life changes. And a new beginning does not erase everything that came before it. Sometimes the past becomes part of your strength. Sometimes the hardest goodbye opens the door to a future you never expected. And sometimes, the choice that feels like it will break your heart is the exact choice that finally sets you free.